My daughter invited me to my grandson's ninth birthday party after 3 years and 2 months of not one word. I got a haircut for it. I wrapped the present myself. Badly. And I paid $4 for a bow, because he's 9 and 9-year-olds see the bow before they see the box. I pulled up on Hawthorne Road at 5:52 in the evening, because I have been 8 minutes early to everything in my life since the army, and I never made it to the porch. A woman came around the side of that house carrying a garbage bag, and she took hold of my sleeve. She was shaking. Not the scared kind. The other kind, the kind that means somebody already knows how the night ends and has known for a while. "Mr. Haugen," she said, "go home. The party was last Saturday. You're going to want to call me a fool for what I did next. Go ahead. You'd be in good company. Because I spent 27 years watching sharp people walk straight into this exact room, and I walked in anyway. Hope isn't a decision, friend. It gets in under the door before you've had a chance to vote on it. So I did what she told me. I moved my truck around the corner onto Vermilion. I walked back. And I stood behind a stack of pallets in a neighbor's side yard, 71 years old, still holding a wrapped present with a $4 bow on it. 9 minutes. 9 minutes. And something pulled up in front of my daughter's house that I had spent my entire working life on the other end of. And standing in those weeds, I finally saw the thing I'd been too glad to look at. Nobody in that house was making a cake. That invitation wasn't an invitation. It was a date. Somebody needed a 71-year-old man standing on that porch on that exact Friday, 1 week late, holding a present. And the person who picked the date was my girl. My name is Delbert Orrin Haugen. Everybody calls me Del. I live in Duluth, Minnesota, in an apartment over a laundromat on Superior Maid, which means my floor is warm every night of the year, and I can hear the lift bridge go up. It goes up 11 times a night in the summer. I know all 11. For 27 years, I ran the fraud desk at Skyline Federal Credit Union. Most people don't know that job exists, so let me tell you what it is. A teller sees something an old man in the lobby 3 Tuesdays running with a fella who won't sit down, a withdrawal that doesn't look like the last 40 withdrawals, and she flags it, and it lands on my desk, and I decide. I can put a hold on an account. That's a real power, and a strange one, because a hold means a grown American citizen cannot get to his own money until I say so. I was old-fashioned about it. I drove out. I sat in the kitchen. I looked at what was on the counter. I asked the man to read me his own gas bill out loud, and I watched his face while he did it, and then I drove back downtown and made a call that decided whether he kept his house. 617 holds in 27 years. I was good at it. I said no more often than I said yes, and there were people in that building who thought I was a nuisance about it, and I took that as the compliment. It wasn't. And on the 22nd of May, at 6:01 in the evening, in a side yard on a street I know, I became a file. Let me back up. Nadine is 43. She's my only one. She runs an insurance agency out of a storefront up in Kenwood, and the name on that door is Haugen and Rask Insurance Group. Haugen first. That's my name, and it was my father's name, and it meant something in this town for about 60 years, in the way a name means something in a town like this, which is to say, not much, but not nothing. 3 years and 2 months of nothing. Then a text on a Tuesday. Dad Rowan's turning 9. Friday the 22nd, 6 o'clock. Please come. I've been wrong about a lot. I read that message 60 times. And here's the only part of this whole thing I'm ashamed of. I never checked the date. Not once. I check dates for a living. That was the job. You check a date against a date until something doesn't line up. My girl sent me 19 words, and I checked exactly nothing. The woman with the garbage bag was maybe 58, in the kind of clothes you wear when somebody's paying you to be in their house, and she had a car key in her free hand, held the way you'd hold something you meant to use. Move your truck first, she said. Do that first, around the corner, then walk back if you have to. I have listened to liars for a living. Not across a desk, across a counter, with the grandkids' school pictures stuck to the refrigerator behind their heads. This woman was not lying. I have never seen a person that frightened who was still standing all the way up. What is this? I said. They already made the call. There were balloons on the mailbox. I want you to understand what that means, friend. There was no party. There had been one 6 days earlier, and there would not be another. Somebody went to a store that afternoon and bought balloons and tied them to a mailbox so that when a deputy pulled up he would see balloons, and he would see an old man on a porch a week late holding a present, and nobody would have to tell him one single thing. That's the whole trick. You don't lie to a deputy. You build him a picture and let him do the lying for you. 2 county squads came up, Hawthorne with no lights. Then an ambulance, quiet, and behind it a gray Highlander, and out of the Highlander came my son-in-law, Corbin Rask, 46, quarter zip and khakis, with a folder under his arm. Then a fourth vehicle, and a woman with a lanyard and a clipboard, and I knew what she was before she got her door shut. County social worker. I've worked beside 24 of them. I know what's on that clipboard. Then my daughter came out onto her own front steps. Nadine did not look like a woman in trouble. Her hair was up. She had on the gray sweater she wears when she's meeting somebody. She wasn't crying. She came down those steps and handed a deputy a manila folder with both hands, carefully, the way you'd hand somebody an x-ray, and he opened it and read for maybe a minute and a half. Then he looked at his partner and did that little thing they do with the chin. And Nadine put one hand up over her mouth. Just briefly. The way you do when a thing you've been dreading is finally underway. And then she pointed at the curb. At the exact stretch of curb where my truck was supposed to be, the deputy walked out there. He stood on that empty piece of curb and looked up the street one way and then the other, the way a man does when the thing he was told about isn't where they told him it'd be. The paramedics never got out. That's what I keep going back around to. They sat in that cab with the engine running for 19 minutes, and one of them had his boots up on the dash, because there was nothing for them to do yet. They were waiting on me. And then Corbin walked back down to the Highlander and opened the hatch and took out a folded wheelchair. I want you to hear that. Before anybody had said a word to me, before I'd rung a bell or raised my voice or been anything at all, a man had loaded a wheelchair into his vehicle in his own driveway and driven it across town for me. I stayed behind those pallets half an hour after they left. My phone was in my pocket the whole time. And here's a thing I've never told a living soul, and I'm going to tell you twice so you can't hear it as an accident. I took it out, and I got as far as her name. Twice. Because some animal part of a father can sit in the weeds and watch a person organize his disappearance and still believe there's been a misunderstanding, let me just call her. We'll get this straightened out. The present was on the ground by then. I set it down somewhere around the second squad car, and I don't remember doing it. I want to stop right here, because if you've got a parent, or you are one, you need to know what almost happened to me, and you need to know it would not have made a sound. Nobody was going to arrest me. There was no crime, not one. In this state, if the right people say the right sentence and one licensed professional signs underneath it, a man goes to a facility on an emergency hold. 72 hours. And here's what nobody knows until it's their father. 72 hours does not mean 72 hours. It doesn't count Saturdays. It doesn't count Sundays. It doesn't count legal holidays. They picked the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. Do the arithmetic with me. Friday evening. Saturday doesn't count. Sunday doesn't count. Monday's a holiday. I would have been in a bed with a plastic band on my wrist until Wednesday, and every few hours somebody would have come in and asked me gently whether I knew what season it was. And an emergency conservatorship motion gets heard in 3 days. No handcuffs, no mugshot. Nothing in the paper. Just a very calm man in a quarter zip with a folder and an ambulance idling at a curb and a form. That's how it actually goes. Not with violence. With stationery. I don't remember driving home. I remember sitting in the dark in an apartment that smells like other people's dryer sheets, with my coat still on, until about 2 in the morning. And what I felt wasn't rage. It was recognition. Like a carpenter watching somebody frame a wall with his own hammer. Now let me tell you what I handed over. Because I handed it over. All of it. Myself. And I'd bet the truck you've done at least one of these. In 2015, Nadine asked to put my name on the agency. She was starting out. A name folks knew would open doors, a 40-year-old woman's name wouldn't. And that's not a nice thing about this town, but it's a true one. Junie was still alive then, my wife. Junie sat right there at that table and said, "Dell, she's not asking you for money. She's asking for your name. Give the girl your name." So I signed a consent, and on page 3 of that consent there was a member-manager designation, and I did not read page 3. That made me an owner of that company on paper. Junie died the next spring. She never knew what the name was for. I'm glad about that. That's a real thing I'm glad about, and I don't have many. In 2017 I had a hip done, and my mother's house up in Hibbing was closing that same week. So Nadine drove me out to a title company on Miller Trunk, and I signed a durable power of attorney on the hood of a Buick in the parking lot because the notary had to leave at 3. 2 pages. I read page 1. 8 years that thing sat in a drawer in my daughter's office, and it did not expire, because durable means it survives you losing your mind. That's not an accident in the wording. That is the entire purpose of the word. In 2020, she said, "Dad, put me on the checking so I can handle your bills if you're ever laid up." And I said, "Sure. Friend, set down whatever you're holding for this one, because this is the part I got paid 27 years to know, and I walked into it anyway." There is a difference between an authorized signer and a joint owner. An authorized signer is a helper. A joint owner is an owner. Today. Right now. Not when you die, not if you get sick this minute, while you're sitting there. A joint owner can take every dollar in that account on a Tuesday afternoon, and it is not theft. It's a withdrawal. I signed the joint owner card. I signed the joint owner card. And in 2022, they told me the stairs on 4th Street were getting to be a lot, and there was a nice place over a laundromat with an elevator and a warm floor. Every single time, one word. Formality. It's a formality, Dad. 27 years I sat in strangers' kitchens listening for that word, because that word is the tell. Nobody says formality about a thing that doesn't matter. You don't call a grocery list a formality. That word only comes out of a mouth right before an old man picks up a pen. I heard it 4 times from my own daughter, and I never heard it once. There's one more, and it's the one that matters. 2 years ago, a 1099 showed up in my mailbox. From Haugen and Rask Insurance Group, guaranteed payments to a member. $61,400. I have never taken a dollar out of that company. I have never worked a day in it. I have never been in the back office. I called her. Bookkeeper miscoded it, she'd fix it. 6 weeks later, I asked again. She'd fix it. Then I asked for one thing, and hear how small it is. I asked her to have the credit union send me a copy of the signature card on that business account. One piece of paper, a photocopy. She didn't yell. She never yelled. She said, "I'll get it to you, Dad." She never got it to me. I asked a 3rd time. And 2 weeks after that, Corbin called me in that voice he's got. The voice of a man reading you your own chart, and told me I was putting a great deal of strain on Nadine. That she was under pressure. That maybe a little space would be healthy for everybody. 3 years and 2 months of silence started with a father asking his daughter for a photocopy. I thought I'd lost my girl because I embarrassed her. I hadn't. I'd lost my girl because I'd almost gotten it. Hold on. Before I take you into the part I don't like telling, do me a favor. Put in the comments where you are and what the clock says where you're sitting right now. I read every one. I'm not saying that because somebody told me to. I'm an old man in an apartment over a laundromat, and those comments are the closest thing I've got to a shift change. All right, stay with me. Here's where it turns. I need to put something in here, and it belongs here and nowhere else. Nadine had a baby in 2009. A girl. Renjuni Rask, born the 3rd of October, 6 pounds, 1 ounce. She lived 11 days. I'm not going to do that to you. You don't need the details, and I'm not selling them. Here's the only part that matters for what comes. At the funeral home, there were 4 of us. Corbin held it together. Junie held it together. Nadine was 26 years old, and she stood in the doorway of that room and could not go in. She stood there 40 minutes, and I stood next to her and said nothing, because there isn't anything. And finally she said, "Dad, she doesn't count, does she? 11 days. She doesn't count for anything." And I said, "She counts. She's my granddaughter. Right now, she's the only one I've got. Rowan, Adeline, Ren, 3. That's been the number since Adeline was born, and it is not a thing I take a vote on. Hold on to that, friend, because a man in a good suit is going to pick it up in a minute and use it on me, and my daughter is going to sit 10 feet away and let him. People don't turn. That's the part nobody tells you. Nobody wakes up and turns. They slide, a little at a time, in a direction they'd have sworn on their mother they'd never go, and every step is smaller than the one before it, and there is never one step where a decent person stops and says, "Wait, this is it, this is the one." The woman with the garbage bag called me at 7 the next morning. "Mr. Haugen, Dovi Marchetti." I need to say a lot of things fast. I sat down. She's cleaned houses 31 years. 11 of them for Northgate Care Solutions. She goes into their clients' homes, mops their floors, empties what needs emptying. Northgate is Corbin's company. On Thursdays, she does my daughter's house. Corbin Rask is a licensed professional fiduciary. Let me explain that, because most people have never heard of it and it's about to matter. When an older person has no family, or the family's fighting, or a judge decides the family can't be trusted, the court appoints a professional, a stranger, and that stranger runs the money, the house, the medications, and here this last one, the visitors. Who's allowed in the room? It's a real profession. It's a good one, when good people do it, and there are good people doing it right now. Corbin holds 9 of those, plus 58 care contracts. 10, Dovey said. If the paperwork clears, it's 10. Her voice did not move 1 degree. I've watched him do this 3 times. He doesn't need a crime. He doesn't need you to do anything at all. He needs a hold, a signature from somebody licensed, and a next of kin willing to sign the petition. And Nadine signed the petition. It was filed on a Monday, Dovey said. The 19th. The 19th. She texted me on the 19th. The invitation was written after the petition was filed. The party wasn't the trap. The party was the delivery. They needed a 71-year-old man physically standing on that porch on the wrong Friday with a present in his hands. So, the affidavit could say, the subject arrived at a family residence 1 week after the event, confused as to the date, and could not be redirected. The present was the evidence. I wrapped it myself. I set the phone on my knee and looked out at Superior Street a while. Then I picked it back up. Mrs. Marchetti, why did you stop me? Long quiet. In 2009, my father had a house on Piedmont. A man was seal-coating his driveway. Drove him to the branch 3 times in 1 month. I called that credit union 11 times. 11. And every single time a very nice person told me they couldn't discuss the account with me because I wasn't on the account. The floor was warm under my feet. It always is. And then one afternoon a man drove out and sat at my father's kitchen table for 2 hours. Looked in the cupboards. Asked my dad to read him the gas bill out loud, and my dad read it just fine. And that man went back downtown and put a hold on it and got the money back. My father died in that house 7 years later in his own bed. I couldn't say anything. You never looked over at the sink, she said. That's where I was, the whole 2 hours, 27 years. 617 holds. I could not have told you one thing about Nunzio Marchetti. Not his face, not his street. I saved a man's whole life on a Tuesday and forgot it inside a week, because I had 4 more houses that day and I wanted to be home by 6. And 16 years later, that forgotten afternoon came around the side of a house with a garbage bag and grabbed my sleeve. If you have ever done something decent for somebody and never thought about it again, and you have, friend, more than once, then sit with this next part, because it's the truest thing I've got at 71. The people who show up for you at the end are almost never the ones you were building something with. They're the ones you helped on an ordinary afternoon and drove away from and never thought about again. Which means the only real insurance any of us ever buys is the kindness we don't remember spending. I'm not saying that to be sweet. I'm saying it because it's arithmetic. Ossie Bregg keeps a storefront on Central between a bait shop and a nail salon. 41 years old. 6 years of elder law. My first thought when she came around that desk was that she was younger than my daughter, and I want that on the record because it's the last stupid thought I had that year. I laid it out. She let me finish. Then she said, "How much of this is on paper?" "None of it." "Then let's start with the paper that already exists." She turned her laptop around. "The petition's public. It's been on the docket since the 19th. You want to see who signed it? Nadine. Her signature." And something went through me so fast, I had to put my hand flat on that desk. "Ossie, pull the signature card." The business account at Skyline took her 9 days. My name, my signature. And I have written my name maybe 200,000 times, and I know what it looks like. And the D on that card had a loop in it, and my D has not had a loop in it since I was 14 years old. Here's what I understood. Sitting in a storefront next to a bait shop. Corbin wanted a file. Fine. That's what he does. But my daughter needed something that had nothing to do with money at all. If I ever got a lawyer and made a real demand about that card, that's forgery. On a financial instrument, and there is exactly one person on this earth who can stand up and swear he never signed it. Me. Only me. It's my hand. Nobody else in the world has the standing to say it isn't mine. unless a court says I can't be trusted to know what I signed. A protected person doesn't file complaints. A protected person makes allegations. Allegations go in a file. And I need you to hear this one. A protected person's conservator decides whether he is permitted to speak to an investigator at all. Every single person who's heard this tells me the same thing. They tell me it was greed. It wasn't. If they'd wanted my money, they could have had it. I'd have written the check at the kitchen table and thanked her for asking. What they needed was for nobody on earth to believe me. That's not greed. Greed I'd understand. That's something else, and I have not found the word for it yet. My daughter didn't need me broke. She needed me unbelievable. Aussie filed our answer, and then she told me the thing that stopped my breath. You can demand a jury. I've read that line in the statute. Enough times. 27 years of pulling files, and I had never once seen a human being use it. They're old. They're scared. Their lawyer tells them it'll run the bill up. So a judge does it in 20 minutes in an empty room, and it's over. 6 people, Aussie said. 6 from this county, and they get to look at you. 6, not 12. 6 is worse, friend. 12, you can lose one and it doesn't show. 6 people, you can see every face at once, and every face can see you. They'll ask me what year it is in front of everybody. Yes, on the record. She took her glasses off. Mr. Haugen, this is going to be the worst afternoon of your life, I said. Demand it. And then they came for me. And I have to tell you about this part, because everybody believes the truth just walks into a courtroom and sits down. It doesn't. It gets muddied first. Their attorney filed a motion arguing that a man who hires counsel to resist a family petition is displaying persecutory ideation consistent with early decline. Read that again. Getting a lawyer was the symptom. Somebody called for a welfare check on me at 11:40 on a Tuesday night. 2 officers at my door. Nothing came of it. But there's a report now, and a report is a document, and a document goes in a file, and the file is the whole game. Somebody called Skyline, my own shop, 27 years, and suggested that a retired fraud man litigating against his own kid might be leaning on old friends to pull records he had no business seeing. Rennie Sopko and I worked that desk together 19 years. Rennie stopped taking my calls. And somebody filed a complaint against Aussie with the lawyers board. Here's what nobody understands about being 71 with a petition against you. You cannot pass. There's no test to pass. You object, you're combative, you go quiet, you're withdrawn. You bring documents, you're fixated. You bring none, you're not tracking. You cry, you're labile. You don't cry, that's inappropriate affect. Every door in that room opens onto the same hallway. If you've ever been in a fight where the harder you argued, the guiltier you looked, a job, a marriage, a family group text, anywhere on this earth, you already know the shape of it. It's an old shape. Most people just don't meet it at 71 with the rest of their life on the table. Judge Eileen Scarr recused herself in one line. Her mother has a care contract with Northgate Care Solutions. Sit with that. In a county of 200,000 people, the first judge we drew had already handed her own mother to the man on the other side of the table. And she was the only person in that entire building honest enough to say so out loud. They borrowed Judge Everett Pomfret from Itasca County, 72 years old, and he had a way of taking a very long time to say a very short thing. The 14th of October, the courthouse on Priley Drive, courtroom 3. Longest day I have ever spent inside a building. 6 jurors. Corbin at the petitioner's table, calm, credentialed. Nadine beside him in a navy suit, and I looked at my daughter's hands and thought, she's not sleeping. And me at the other table. And nobody prepares you for this. In a hearing like that, you're not the plaintiff and you're not the defendant. You're the subject. They talk about you in the third person while you're sitting right there. Their attorney went first. Very nice young man. Never raised his voice one time. That was the whole strategy. And it's the best one there is. He didn't do the 7s. Nobody does the 7s anymore. Everybody's heard about the 7s. They've got a better one. Mr. Haugen, would you draw a clock face for me? All the numbers. Then set the hands to 10 past 11. 10 past 11. Say it out loud right now, friend, wherever you're sitting, and tell me where your hand wants to go. It wants the 10. Everything in you wants to put that hand on the 10. And the 10 is wrong. That's a trap somebody built into that test on purpose 60 years ago. And it works, and it has always worked, and I have watched it work on people I loved. I got it right. I want you to hear that. I got it right, and it did not help me one bit, because he never needed me to get it wrong. He needed 6 people to watch me stop, and I stopped. 4 seconds. That's all it was. 4 seconds with a pencil in my hand and 6 strangers watching me decide. 4 seconds is a very long time. Then he set the pencil aside and got gentle. Mr. Haugen, how many grandchildren do you have? 3. Take your time, sir. 3. Mr. Haugen. The records before this court show 2. And I sat in that chair and I had to explain to 6 strangers, on the record, out loud, why I count Ren Juni Rask, born the 3rd of October, 2009, 6 pounds, 1 ounce, 11 days. My daughter was 10 feet away. Somebody had told them. That number is not on a form anywhere in this world. There is exactly one place that number lives, and it's inside the 3 of us, and one of the 3 handed it to a lawyer in a good suit and let him use it on her father. My voice went out in the middle of the word 11, in front of 6 strangers and a bailiff and my own kid, and he said, very softly, "Thank you, Mr. Haugen," and sat down. That's it. That's the trick. I have watched 100 lawyers do it from the other chair, and I had never once been the one in the chair. He didn't need me confused. Confused was never the plan. He needed 6 people to watch a 71-year-old man cry about a baby, because a man crying about a baby is not a man running an estate. Something warm and terrible went through that jury box, and the warm part is the part that convicts you. The woman in seat 2 wouldn't look at me after that. 60s, cardigan, hands folded in her lap. And I thought, she's already decided, and she believes she's being kind. That's the worst thing about these, and nobody says it out loud. The people who take everything from you are almost never angry with you. They think they're helping. The jury thinks it's helping. The judge thinks he's helping. The nice young man with the soft voice thinks he's helping. Not one soul in that room hated me. They just didn't think I was in there. I have asked some version of that question in 617 files. I sat on people's couches and asked old men to read me their gas bills and watched their eyes go hunting for it. And I never once, not one time in 27 years, understood that the asking is the wound. The answer's got nothing to do with it. Once a man in a good suit stands up in a room and asks whether you know your own family, you will never again say a number about your own life without checking it first. I check now. Every time. 3. It's 3. Aussie stood up at 10 past 2. She never asked me one question. She never called me back up. She put the petition on the screen. Not the petition. The properties. That little pane nobody ever looks at. Created. The 8th of May. 11 days before my daughter texted me. Author. A workstation registered to Northgate Care Solutions. Revision number. 14. 14 drafts, Aussie said. You don't revise a description of a man you found confused. You revise a story. Then she put up the affidavit itself. Paragraph 6. On the 30th of April, the subject was observed at his residence, unable to identify his own medications. And then she put up a photograph of a guest book. On the 30th of April, I was at Lenora Sopko's funeral in Grand Rapids, Rennie's mother. 2 hours from my residence. There's my hand in that book. 3rd page. I'd know it anywhere. Loop-free D and all. And 4 lines under mine. Same book. Same page. In ink. Corbin Rask. He was standing behind me in that line. He signed the same book. He knew exactly where I was on the 30th of April, because he was 10 feet from me holding a paper plate. And 8 days later he sat down at a machine in his own office and typed that I was at my residence not knowing my own pills. And then he revised it 14 times. A juror in the back, young guy, ball cap he'd been asked twice to take off, sat forward and put his elbows on the rail and did not move again the rest of that day. Aussie called Dovi Marchetti. Blue dress. Purse in her lap the whole time. She described the wheelchair. She described the balloons. Their attorney went after her hard. Disgruntled. Jealous. Paid. And Dovi Marchetti looked at that nice young man and said, "Sir, I clean the bathrooms of people who can't clean their own. In 11 years, nobody in any of those houses has looked at me on purpose one time." She moved her purse an inch. You don't have to see the woman with the mop, but she's in the room, and she's got both eyes. Then Aussie called Corbin. I've thought about this more than any other part of it. He was extraordinary. Calm. Precise. He explained fiduciary duty. He explained his bond. He explained that he had recused himself from being named a colleague at Northgate would serve, a colleague at his own company, who reports to him. And Aussie said, Mr. Rask. Why guardianship? Corbin looked at her a long moment. Because I was 22, he said, and my mother had a stroke at 52, and her boyfriend had her debit card. Nobody moved. I called that bank 14 times. 14. And every time a very kind woman told me that the account holder would have to call herself. His voice did not change 1 degree. My mother could not say her own name. She could not say water. By the time anybody in this country would listen to me, there was $211 in it. He folded his hands. I don't call his family anymore. I call as the court, they answer. Aussie let it sit. 8 seconds. I counted them. Then she said very quietly, the only cruel thing she said in that entire trial. So you became the voice on the phone. Their attorney was on his feet before she finished. Judge Pomfret sustained it before the man got the word out, struck it, told the jury to disregard. Every human being in that room knew nobody would. And I sat there doing an arithmetic I have not been able to stop doing since. Wrong institution, wrong city, wrong year. I was on the commercial side in 2002. I went and I checked. It was not me. But there were 6 of us on that phone bank, and I could not give you the name of one single person I told no to. He is not a monster. That's what I need you to understand, and it's why I don't sleep. He was a 22-year-old kid holding a phone, being told by somebody very kind that his mother would have to speak for herself, and his mother could not say water. So he went out and got the one thing in this country that makes people pick up, which is a court order. And then he used it 58 times. Understanding somebody doesn't set the thing down. It picks it up. A monster you hate and you're finished. A person you carry the rest of the way. Aussie sat down. Then she stood back up. One more, Your Honor. Nadine Rask. She went up there like a woman walking into cold water. And Aussie was kind to her. That's what finished it. She asked her about a bicycle. She asked her whether she remembered a Tuesday in 1992 in the lot behind the Kmart on Central, when she was 10 years old and couldn't break the lug nuts loose on a flat and threw the wrench, and her father made her go pick it up. She said yes. Took her 4 tries to get the word out. And then Aussie put 2 documents side by side on the screen. On the left, my hand, a marriage license, tax returns, the deed to a house on 4th Street. On the right, a signature card for a business account at Skyline Federal. Mrs. Rask. Whose hand wrote this? Nothing. 15 seconds. I counted those 2. Judge Pomfret leaned forward slow. Ma'am, you need to answer the question. And my girl looked at the floor of that courtroom and said, mine. Nobody breathed. And you could feel it go through those 6 people in about 4 seconds, like a light coming on room by room in a house. Not greed. She had never been after my house, or my pension, or my life. She had been trying to arrange it so that the only witness who could put her in a cell would never be permitted to say anything about anything ever again. Corbin turned his head and looked at his wife. And I have never seen a face do what that face did. He hadn't known. He had 6 plans, and not one of them had that in it. And Nadine Haugen Rask sat in that box in a navy suit and started to cry the way a person cries when they've been carrying something 4 years and it finally sets itself down. And here's the part nobody in that courtroom would forgive me for. I wanted to go up there. 71 years old, 10 feet from 6 jurors, everything on the record, and every part of me that has ever been anything wanted to cross that floor and put my hand on the back of my daughter's neck the way you do a kid who's come off a bike. I sat still. That is the hardest thing I have ever done, and I did it in a chair with both hands flat on a table, and not one person in that room knew it was happening. 6 people were out 40 minutes. And I want to tell you exactly what a verdict form says, because it is not what you think. It does not say a man is of sound mind. There's no box for that. They found that Delbert Orrin Haugen is not an incapacitated person, not incapacitated. That's the whole thing. That is the most any court in this country can ever hand you back a negative. It isn't a gift, friend. It's the absence of a theft. Judge Pomfret dismissed the petition with prejudice. He voided the power of attorney I signed on the hood of a Buick. He voided the joint owner card. He struck the member manager designation. Then he took his glasses off and looked at Aussie. Counselor, how many conservatorships does Northgate Care Solutions currently hold in this state? 9, Your Honor. Care contracts? 58. He turned to his clerk. Get me the chief judge of this district before I leave this building. That phone call is the only thing out of that whole year that amounts to anything, because those 9 people never got 6 jurors. They were old, and they were tired, and their lawyers told them it'd run the bill up, and a judge did it in 20 minutes in an empty room. Northgate went under a state audit in January. All 9 were reopened. 4 are still going. Corbin surrendered his registration. He was not charged. There was no crime. That was the entire point from the first day. But he can't be appointed anywhere in this state again. Some of you want him in a cell. I know, because I want it too, at 4 in the morning. And I've argued your side against my own bathroom mirror more times than I'll admit. Sit with this. He never broke a law. Not one. Every form he filed was a real form. Every box he checked was true, or true enough. The machine did exactly what the machine is built to do. If that makes you angry, good. Then you finally understand the thing I did not understand in 27 years of doing it for a living. Nadine pled. Forgery and premium theft. 30 months at Shakopee, restitution, license gone. She's there because I walked that guest book and that 1099 into the county attorney's office myself, on a Wednesday. In the rain. I set them on the counter and said my name out loud. There's a woman named Bev Onstad whose husband paid my daughter's agency for 11 years and died with no policy. She got 40 cents on the dollar out of the state guarantee fund, 18 months later. I sent her the rest. It isn't restitution. There's no word for what it is. Corbin drives to Shakopee every other Saturday. 4 hours, round trip. He takes both kids and he packs sandwiches, because he doesn't want them watching him swipe a card for their mother's lunch. Dovey told me that. He's a good father. He's a good husband. He tried to end me with a form. All 3 are true at the same time, and I have not yet found the sentence that holds them. Nadine wrote me in March. 11 pages. The first 10 are the ones I expected. The market. The pressure. Corbin. The year Rowan was sick. And then page 11 is 9 lines long, and there's nothing in it but what she did, no reason attached to it. Nothing asked for, and I have read page 11 more times than I have read anything else in my life. I don't know what to do with the first 10. I haven't thrown them out. They're part of it. It's in the top drawer of my desk. Same drawer that held the power of attorney for 8 years. I know what that means. I put it there anyway, and I couldn't tell you why. I've written back 3 times. I've mailed nothing. Any man who tells you he forgave a thing like this inside a year is selling you something, and any man who tells you he never will is selling you something too. I'm somewhere in the middle, and the middle is the longest part of it. Rennie Sopko called me in December. He didn't apologize, and I didn't want him to. He said, Dell, I've got a folding table, so that's the job now. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 to noon, in the lobby of the Central Avenue branch. No pay. A folding table, a chair with a bad wheel, and a sign I lettered myself. People sit down. I ask them one question. And last Thursday, a woman named Marva asked me to drive out to Cloquet, and I sat in a front room with a legal pad on my knee across from her father. Ivor Pelkey, 89. I asked him all of it. The year. The president. And then I said, Mr. Pelkey, draw me a clock. 10 past 11. He drew a circle. He set the pencil down, and he looked at me with those milky eyes, and he said, I can't tell you the year, son. 89 years old, calling me son. I can't tell you the year, but I can tell you that somebody carried my wife's piano out that door on a Thursday. And there is nobody left in this world I'm allowed to ask about it. I wrote that down word for word. It's not a report. Nobody's going to read it but me. It's the best thing I have ever put on paper. And it took a 43-year-old woman with my name on her door trying to erase me to teach me how to listen to an old man. Here's what I know at 71 that I did not know at 70. They don't come for your money. Not first, and mostly not at all. They come for your say-so, your word about your own life. Because the second that's gone, the money is a formality. So is the house. So is the door on your bedroom, and who's allowed through it, and whether one single person on this earth is obligated to tell you what's in the little paper cup. Money is the thing in the box, friend. Your say-so is the hand that opens it. They don't rob the box. They take the hand. And here's the ugly part, the part nobody at Skyline ever said out loud in 27 years, and I'm the proof. In damn near every one of these, that door got unlocked from the inside. by the man who lived there. On a good day, feeling generous, because it was a formality, and it was just his kid. Somebody's going to say the old needs somebody on their side. That's true, and it isn't enough. Nobody is on your side automatically. Not the bank, not the county, not the nice young man with the gentle voice. And I'm sorry, but not always the one you raised. Your say-so isn't handed to you, and it does not renew by itself. It's kept. Same way you keep a roof. You go up there once a year, and you look, and you feel foolish doing it, and you do it anyway. So here's what I want out of you today. It's free. It takes about 20 minutes. You're going to feel silly, and I want you to do it anyway. Call your bank tomorrow and ask one question. Is anybody a joint owner on my accounts, or an authorized signer? Those are not the same thing. And whoever told you they were the same thing is the person you ought to be asking about. A joint owner owns it, today, right now. While you're standing there in your kitchen with the phone, go find every piece of paper with your name on it that you have not looked at in 5 years. If you can't find it, that is your answer. Somebody else has it. If you signed a power of attorney in a bad year and never thought about it since, revoke it this week and sign a new one. It runs a couple $100. You'll spend more than that on tires. Then write down every name that's on any of it, and next to each name, write down the last time you talked to that person about it. Read that list out loud to yourself. The question isn't who's stealing from me. Nobody's stealing from you. The question is, whose name is on my life? And when did I last say it out loud? Because you handed it over. On a good day, at a table, to somebody you loved. That's the only way it has ever gotten in. Before I let you go, this one splits every room I've told it in, so I want to hear it. Comment 1 if you think I was right to walk that guest book into the county attorney's office knowing exactly what it was going to do to my daughter. Comment 2 if you think I should have taken what they offered me at the end, everything back. No charges, no prison, and 2 kids who get to have their mother home. A parent's a parent. Comment 3 if you think this whole thing was already decided in 2015, on an ordinary Tuesday, when a proud man let his 40-year-old girl put his father's name on her door because it made him feel like somebody. 3 is the one that gets me at 4 in the morning. And tell me where you are and what the clock says there. I mean it. It does something to me, knowing this is going in a kitchen in Tulsa at midnight, and in a truck idling outside a plant in Erie before the shift, and in a hospital chair somewhere at 4 in the morning where nobody was going to sleep anyway. And if you have ever been talked about in the third person in a room you were sitting in, say so. Don't dress it up. Somebody's going to scroll past your comment tonight who has never once heard another human being say it out loud. If this one stayed with you, subscribe and sit with us a while. It's just me and these stories and a comment section that keeps me straight. Thank you for spending this while with me. Go find out whose name is on your paper. And go be decent to somebody you're going to forget. This is a fictional story, fully rewritten and reimagined, drawn from the kinds of things that happen to real families in this country every single day. Any resemblance to actual persons is coincidental. Dell never let a court, a lawyer, or a single form tell him how many grandchildren he had. 3. It was always 3. Hold on to that. The people you love don't need a document to be real, and nothing true about your heart requires anybody's signature. So go say the number out loud today, the name, the count, the whole warm truth. Somebody's been waiting to hear it. A gentle note before you go. This whole story was imagined and written by AI, pure fiction, made to keep you company and entertained for a while, and to send you off with a lesson worth keeping.